Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, later in the programme, we're going to explore why so many people seem to be preparing to vote for UKIP in the elections later this week. But this disenchantment with regular politicians is spread right across Europe as more and more people become fed up with the EU. In Italy, for example, the governing party is being pressed by a party led by Beppe Grillo, a comedian who rejects all EU budget rules and promises a referendum on whether his country should stay in the euro at all. The party of Silvio Berlusconi, who so recently was Prime Minister, is running third. Of course, he's had other things to think about, charges of fraud, of sex with underage prostitutes and so on. I went to see him at his villa outside Milan. I should warn you, this interview does contain a little strong language. There will never be a United States of Europe, will there?
No. Non ci saranno mai, questo era...
No, that was a dream that will never come true.
Guardi, oggi l'Unione è molto diversa.
Today's EU is different from the dreams of its founding fathers. The EU has a very imbalanced economic policy and a very imbalanced tax policy, and they don't have a foreign policy. When we had a meeting with the heads of state, I proposed to have just one president, and I suggested Tony Blair, because he was really charismatic.
George Bush,
a good friend of mine, rang me up and asked me who to speak to in order to understand the European position in Iraq. And I told him to try to contact everybody. I am very concerned about what the European Union is doing and its behavior towards the Russian Federation, with these absurd sanctions that the EU and the USA are imposing on people who they think are close to Putin. In doing that, they are putting a distance between our countries, and this could mean that Russia returns to the sort of isolation of the Cold War.
Si ritiri ancora in una solitudine come quella della Guerra Fredda.
The euro was always a political project. In your judgment, is Europe growing apart or continuing to grow closer?
E quindi noi dobbiamo fare un'opera molto forte di cambiamento.
We need to radically change the situation in Europe. For example, the fact that the UK is not in the Eurozone, and we are, is a complete disaster. We need radical changes, otherwise the economic situation will force us and other European countries to abandon the euro and go back to our national currencies.
È necessario che la Banca Centrale Europea, che oggi
the European Central Bank is supposed to fight inflation, and it needs to become a central bank, like the Federal Reserve, like the Bank of England or the Bank of Japan.
Banca centrale, come la vostra banca, come la Federal Reserve, come la Banca del Giappone. E cosa deve fare questa banca centrale?
What does it need to do? Firstly, it needs to guarantee the debt of the euro countries, and secondly, to print money when needed for those countries that cannot pay their debts.
In scadenza nei paesi che non possono.
Do you have a particular problem with Angela Merkel? Is it true you called her an unfuckable lard-arse?
Non arriverei, io non ho mai.
But, all right,
scusi, non ho mai, in 20 anni di politica, insultato nessuno.
No, I have never had any problems with Angela Merkel. In 20 years of politics, I have never insulted anyone. And this has been made up by someone who wanted to turn Angela against me.
È chiaro quindi che non ero un personaggio comodo.
I was not an easy person to deal with, and I was quite tough. I had the courage to oppose some of the proposals made by Merkel and Sarkozy.
Proposte che venivano dal duo Merkel-Sarkozy.
And the time when you jumped out from behind a monument and went cuckoo to Angela Merkel, that was just a joke, was it?
Ma lei?
She enjoyed it. I explained why I did the cuckoo thing. A few days earlier, I had been to St. Petersburg to visit Putin.
A San Pietroburgo per incontrare Putin. Putin si nascose dietro un pilastro, io andai verso la porta e lui da dietro mi fece cucù. Allora,
Putin hid behind the pillar and did cuckoo to me from behind.
Di grande confidenza.
Merkel and I were really on good terms, so when she came to Trieste, I thought of what Putin had done, and I basically hid behind the monument and did the same thing.
Gli spiegai che era stato Vladimir Putin a farlo a me qualche giorno prima. Ma questo per dirle i rapporti di grande
It was funny.
che esistevano tra di noi.
This only matters because at this level of European politics, personal relationships are hugely important, aren't they?
Sarkozy ha temuto
With Sarkozy, it's a different matter. He feared that my friendship with Gaddafi would stop Libya supplying France with oil and gas.
ha deciso prima di
So he moved first to attack Libya and Gaddafi. And I think it was a big mistake.
In your analysis, what is wrong with Italian politics? I mean, you've had 3 prime ministers in the last year.
tutto.
Everything.
Intanto
Italy is no longer a democracy.
in 20 anni abbiamo
In the
avuto
past 20 years, we've had 4 examples of coup d'etat.
abbiamo addirittura
Recently, we've had 3 successive governments that were not directly elected, with Monti, Letta and Matteo Renzi.
oggi noi abbiamo la scadenza elettorale come tutti i paesi dell'Europa il 20
The deadline for the European elections is looming, and we face 2 major threats for the future. The first is the remaining risk of a left-wing government, and the other, you've probably heard of him, is from Mr. Beppe Grillo. He is a real danger to Italy, and I am very concerned.
il nostro paese e io ne ho paura. Lui assomiglia alle caratteristiche
His behavior reminds me of some of the most bloody and dangerous characters in history. He has many things in common with Robespierre, Stalin, and Pol Pot. So he's not someone to be taken lightly.
da prendere alla leggera.
It's unfortunate, isn't it, that as far as so much of the rest of the world is concerned, the reputation you have is all about your private life. It's about corruption and unpaid taxes and bunga parties. I mean, what do you think about that?
Ma io da quando sono sceso in campo
Since I entered politics, I've been involved in 57 trials, but I've never previously had to deal with judges.
sono stato colpito da 57 processi. 46 di questi processi si sono chiusi con una
46 of
piena
those cases
soluzione.
were dismissed, and I'm still dealing with
Sono
others
ancora con gli
concerning
ultimi.
my assets.
Che
This
mi
has
hanno
taken up
colpito
a lot of my
nel
time.
patrimonio, che mi hanno colpito nella disponibilità del mio tempo, perché ho passato per 20 anni i miei
And for
sabati
20
pomeriggio,
years, I've
domeniche
spent every
pomeriggio,
weekend
qualche volta
and
anche
each
lunedì
Monday
pomeriggio,
afternoon with
con gli
lawyers
avvocati
to prepare the
per preparare
2,700
le
hearings
oltre
that were held against me and my
2.700
team.
udienze che sono state fatte contro di me e contro il mio gruppo in 20 anni, 2.700 udienze, record universale, non solo.
2,700
E
is a
praticamente
record, a world
ho
record.
dovuto,
And the lies that were
prendere atto
invented about me
che le
have given me
falsità
a very
continue
bad
che
reputation
sono state
abroad.
inventate su di me hanno prodotto all'estero una
Italians know very well that none of these
decadenza
facts
della
are
mia
true.
immagine che è basata su fatti che tutti gli italiani sanno che non sono veri. Hanno cominciato con quello che lei ha ricordato, il bunga bunga. Poi le faccio vedere
The Bunga Bunga accusations were the most amazing things. Ridiculous.
Si sono inventate delle cose incredibili, ma veramente incredibili, hanno capovolto. Io per fortuna sono più forte di quello che mi hanno fatto.
They manipulated reality. Luckily, I am a strong person and I was able to take it. I want to go down in history as a father of the country
un governo
as my
di centrodestra, un governo
a conservative center-right government
che
to
tolga
protect
l'Italia
Italy
per molto
from a
tempo
potential
dal pericolo
dictator like
di diventare
Grillo.
un paese guidato dalla sinistra o da un dittatore come Grillo.
Now, the United States and China are busy throwing names at each other after Washington accused 5 named Chinese officers of hacking into American nuclear, metal and solar firms to steal trade secrets. In the general manner of accusations of espionage on these occasions, there was much outrage, just as there used to be theatrical horror at the discovery that spies existed. But the targets demonstrate the extent to which international competition is increasingly about firewalls as much as firearms.